Hello, I'm Rosary Pursuit, and today we're studying the third chapter of Read Me or Rue It by Father Paul O'Sullivan. Chapter 3. How long do souls remain in purgatory? The length of time souls are detained in purgatory depends on the number of their faults, the malice and deliberation with which these have been committed, the penance done or not done, the satisfaction made or not made for the sins during life. Much, too, depends on the suffrages offered for them after death. What can be safely said is that the time souls spend in purgatory is, as a rule, very much longer than people commonly imagine. We'll quote a few of the many instances which are recounted in the lives and revelations of the saints. St. Louis Bertrand's father was an exemplary Christian, as we should naturally expect, being the father of so great a saint. He had even wished to become a Carthusian monk, until he learned that it was not God's will for him. When he died, after long years spent in the practice of every Christian virtue, his saintly son, fully aware of the rigors of God's justice, offered many masses and poured forth most fervent supplications for the soul he so dearly loved. A vision of his father, still in purgatory, forced him to intensify 100-fold his suffrages. He added most severe penances and long fasts to his masses and prayers. Yet 8 whole years passed before he obtained the release of his father. St. Malachi's sister was detained in purgatory for a very long time, despite masses, prayers, and heroic mortifications the saint offered for her. It was related to a holy nun in Pamplona, who had succeeded in releasing many Carmelite nuns from purgatory, that most of these had spent their terms of from 30 to 60 years. Carmelite nuns in purgatory for 40, 50, and 60 years. What will it be for those living amidst temptations of the world with all their hundreds of weaknesses? St. Vincent Ferrer, after the death of his sister, prayed with incredible fervor for her soul and offered many masses for her release. She appeared to him at length and told him that had it not been for his powerful intercession with God, she should have remained in interminable time in purgatory. The Dominican Order. It is the rule to pray for the Master Generals by name on their anniversaries. Many of these have been dead several hundred years. They were men especially eminent for piety and learning. This rule would not be approved by the Church were not necessary and prudent. We do not mean to imply that all souls are detained equally long periods in the expiatory fires. Many have committed lesser faults and have done more penance. Therefore, their punishment will be much less severe. Still, the instances we have quoted are very much to the point, for if these souls who enjoyed the intimacy, who saw the example, and who shared in the intercession of great saints during their lives and were aided by their most efficacious suffrages after death, were yet detained for such a length of time in purgatory, what may not happen to us who enjoy none of these wondrous privileges? Why such lengthy expiation? The reasons are not difficult to find. The malice of sin is very great. What appears to us small faults are in reality serious offenses against the infinite goodness of God. It is enough to see how the saints wept over their faults. We are weak, it may be urged. That is true, but then God offers us abundant graces to strengthen our weakness, gives us light to see the gravity of our faults, and the necessary force to conquer temptation. If we are still weak, the fault is all our own. We do not use the light and strength God so generously offers us. We do not pray. We do not receive the sacraments as we should. Number 2. An eminent theologian wisely remarks that if souls are condemned to hell for all eternity because of one mortal sin, it is not to be wondered at that other souls should be detained for long years in purgatory who have committed countless deliberate venial sins, some of which are so grave that at the time of their commission, the sinner scarcely knows that they are mortal or venial. 2. They may have committed many mortal sins, for which they have little sorrow, done little or no penance. The guilt has been remitted by absolution, but the pain due to the sins will have to be paid in purgatory. So, the Lord tells us that we shall have to render an account for each and every idle word we say, that we may not leave our prison until we shall have paid the last farthing. The saints committed few and slight sins, and still they sorrowed much, and did severe penances. We commit many and grave sins, and we sorrow little, and do little or no penance. Venial sins. It would be difficult to calculate the immense number of venial sins that any Catholic commits. There is an infinite number of faults, or self-love, selfishness, thoughts, words, and acts of sensuality too, in 100 forms, faults of charity in thought, word, and deed, laziness, vanity, jealousy, tepidity, and innumerable other faults. There are sins of omission, which we pay so little heed to. We love God so little, yet He has 1,000 claims on our love. We treat Him with coldness, indifference, and base ingratitude. He died for each one of us. Do we ever thank Him as we ought? He remains day and night on the altar, waiting for our visits, anxious to help us. How seldom do we go to Him? He longs to come into our hearts in Holy Communion, and we refuse Him entrance. He offers Himself up for us on the altar every morning at Mass, and gives oceans of graces to those who assist at the great sacrifice. Yet many are too lazy to go to this Calvary. What an abuse of grace! Our hearts are mean and hard, full of self-love. We have happy homes, splendid food, warm clothing, an abundance of all good things. Many around us live in hunger and misery, and we give them so little, whereas we spend lavishly and needlessly on ourselves. Life is given us to serve God, to save our souls. Most Christians, however, are satisfied to give God 5 minutes of prayer in the morning, 5 minutes at night. The rest of the 24 hours is given to work, rest, and pleasure. 10 minutes to God, to our immortal souls, to the great work we have to do, viz. Our salvation. 23 hours and 50 minutes to this transitory life. Is it fair to God? It may be alleged that our work, our rest, our sufferings are done for God. They should be. Then our merits would indeed be great. The truth is that many scarcely ever thank God during the day. The one engrossing object of their thoughts is self. They think and labor and rest, and sleep to satisfy self. God gets very little place in their day and in their minds. This is an outrage to His loving heart, which is ever thinking of us. I will note that up here it says it may be alleged that our work, rest, and sufferings are done for God. This is very important. It's not just sufferings, work, and rest, but simply day to day. Simply keeping it in our minds that whatever we do should be done for God and God's sake is in itself a prayer. I know when I was first taught of this practice, the idea would be just say a little prayer. Oh God, this really sucks. I offer it up to you. Which would be how I thought about it. I wouldn't use those words, but the general feeling would be, man, this really sucks. I had to offer this to God. Okay, I offer it to you. That's what I would do. But while that is a good start, perhaps, maybe not a great start, but a start, it is good to keep in mind that when you make breakfast, You are serving God by feeding yourself. When you eat breakfast, you should be thankful that God has given you food. When you sweep the house, you should be sweeping the house for God's sake, because God likes clean things. It's to glorify God. When you go to work and work 9 to 5, maybe deal with terrible managers, it's for God's sake that you do so, not your own. Well, perhaps it is for your own. You see, that's the difference. It's difficult to keep in mind constantly, but it is certainly a challenge which allows us to pray more often and to perhaps give a greater purpose to our day-to-day. Now, let us continue. We come to the mortal sins. Many Christians, unfortunately, commit mortal sins during their lives. But though they confess them, they make no due satisfaction for them, as we already said. The Venerable Bede appears to be of the opinion that those who pass a great part of their lives in the commission of grave sins and confess them on their deathbed may be detained in purgatory even until the last day. St. Gertrude, in her Revelations, states that those who have committed many grave sins and have not done due penance may not share in the ordinary suffrages of the Church for a very considerable time. All those sins, mortal and venial, are accumulating for the 20, 30, 40, 60 years of our lives. Each and every one has to be atoned for after death. Is it, then, any wonder that souls have to remain so long in purgatory? Oh boy, I'm gonna spend a long time there. Hopefully not. Perhaps I won't make you listen to it during the video, but perhaps after this video we can say a little Hail Mary for the souls in purgatory. Alright. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed the book, there's a link to the playlist in the description below. That is all, and may God bless.